The Rocky Mountains stood silent, majestic sentinels to the world's most elite sniping competition. Snow blanketed the Colorado Valley like a pristine combat zone, undisturbed except for the military precision pathways carved between structures. Flags from 20-3 nations snapped in the mountain wind, each representing warriors who had proven themselves in the deadliest theaters of operation around the globe. Private First Class Maria Santos shouldn't have been there, not among these giants of warfare, not on this hallowed proving ground where legends were born and careers were made. Her steady hands trembled slightly as she polished her assigned M2010 enhanced sniper rifle chambered in 300 Win Mag, a weapon almost as long as she was tall. "Hey, support." "Yeah, you." A booming voice shattered her concentration. Master Sergeant Thompson, the U.S. team lead, towered over her makeshift prep station. "Huh? What the hell are you doing with that weapon, Private?" "Yeah." Maria snapped to attention, her 5-foot- for frame rigid against the much larger man. "Sir, preparing the backup rifle as ordered." "Sir?" Thompson's weathered face contorted into something between amusement and disgust. "That's not your job. Where's Specialist Miller?" "Hospital, sir. Food poisoning confirmed 10 minutes ago." The radio on Thompson's tactical vest crackled. He answered with military precision, his expression darkening with each passing second. The competition committee needed a full roster. No exceptions. No substitutions from outside the registered team members. "So we're short a shooter," Thompson muttered, scanning the prep area where Maria stood. Still at attention. His eyes narrowed. "At ease, Private." "You qualified on this platform?" "Yes, sir. Marksman qualification during basic. Additional range time at Fort Carson, sir." Thompson laughed, the sound hollow and mocking. "Marksman qual. This is the international marksmanship competition hosted near Fort Carson, not some weekend plinking contest." Around him, elite shooters from around the world methodically prepared their equipment. Russian private military contractors with cold eyes. British SAS operators discussing wind patterns with mathematical precision. German GSG-9 snipers adjusting custom triggers, worth more than Maria's entire yearly salary. Major Viktor Volkov, commander of a multinational private team from Eastern Europe, sauntered past. His massive frame blocked the overhead lights as he stopped to assess Maria. "What is this? Americans now send rookies as shooters." His thick accent dripped with disdain. "This is where real operators compete." Maria's jaw tightened imperceptibly as several nearby competitors chuckled. She'd heard worse during her 18 months in uniform. Thompson looked ready to agree when Colonel William Bradford, U.S. Army Special Operations Command representative, approached silently. His weathered face revealed nothing as he observed the interaction. "She's registered as team support, Colonel," Thompson explained quickly. "Miller is down with food poisoning. We need a body in the slot or forfeit." Bradford studied Maria with piercing blue eyes that seemed to look through her, rather than at her. "Private Santos, is it?" "Yes, sir," Maria responded, surprised he knew her name. "You'll compete." His tone left no room for argument. "Major Volkov, I'm sure you're busy with your own team's preparation. Best of luck today." The Russian's face darkened, but he nodded respectfully to Bradford before departing with a final dismissive glance at Maria. "Sir, with all due respect," Thompson began. "That's in order, Master Sergeant," Bradford interrupted quietly. "Get her whatever she needs." As they walked away, Maria reached beneath her collar and touched the small medallion hidden there, a silver eagle clutching lightning bolts. Her father's medallion. She kissed it quickly, a ritual no one had ever witnessed. In the competitor's staging area, World-class snipers prepped gear worth more than Maria's car. Custom triggers, hand-loaded ammunition, wind meters calculating atmospheric variables. Maria had only standard issue equipment in the shooting techniques she'd practiced alone. Night after night when the ranges were supposed to be closed. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 20-3rd International Marksmanship Competition. The announcer's voice boomed across the valley. Today's first qualification round. Targets at 1,200 meters with variable wind conditions. As her name was called last, Maria walked to the firing line amid whispers and barely concealed laughter. Her heart thundered in her chest, but her hands remained steady, unnaturally steady, as she set up her position. "Look at that stance," someone muttered. "Basic training poster child." Major Volkov's voice cut through the comments. "This is embarrassment to prestigious competition. Girl doesn't even have proper cheek weld." But Maria was somewhere else now. The world narrowed to her breathing, the feel of the rifle against her shoulder, the calculations running through her mind: wind speed, direction, temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, Coriolis, bullet drop. Variables most marksmen spent years mastering flowed through her mind in perfect harmony. She exhaled half a breath and squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. 1.2 seconds later, the target 1,200 meters downrange erupted with a perfect center mass hit. Better placement than any previous competitor. Silence fell across the firing line. Then, chaos erupted as officials scrambled to verify what they just witnessed. Maria remained prone, her expression unchanged, as if she'd expected nothing less. Colonel Bradford watched from the observer platform, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth as he made a note in his small black book. The electronic scoreboard flashed Maria's results with cold digital precision. Perfect shot placement. Minimal deviation. Maximum points. System malfunction. Major Volkov demanded immediately. Check target sensors on replay. Range officials hurried to comply. The tension at the firing line could have been cut with a combat knife as competitors and coaches watched the replay on the massive screens. Frame by frame, Maria's shot traveled true, striking dead center on the target's silhouette. "Impact center. Score stands," announced the chief range officer, Private Santos. "Max points." Whispers erupted around the observation area. Master Sergeant Thompson's mouth hung slightly open as he stared at his substitute shooter, still in perfect prone position on the firing line. "Lucky shot," muttered a British SAS sniper, adjusting his ghillie suit hood. Wynne must have died at exactly the right moment. Maria rose smoothly from her position, secured her weapon according to protocol, and returned to the staging area with her eyes forward. No celebration, no acknowledgement of what she'd accomplished. Just textbook military discipline. "How the hell did you do that, Private?" Thompson demanded when they were alone in the American preparation tent. "Applied fundamentals, Sergeant," Maria replied simply, breaking down her rifle for cleaning with practiced efficiency. Wind was gusting northeast at approximately 12 miles per hour with microcurst variations. "I held about 0.7 mil for full minus value wind at that distance." Thompson stared at her as if she'd suddenly started speaking in tongues. "That's competition minus level ballistic calculation." "Where did you learn that?" Maria's hands paused momentarily on the bolt assembly. "My father taught me, Sergeant." "Your father? Who was he?" The tent flap opened before she could answer. Colonel Bradford entered, followed by Major Volkov and competition officials. "Inspection," Volkov announced. Eyes locked on Maria's rifle components spread across the maintenance mat. "Random equipment verification." Maria stood at parade rest as the officials examined her weapon, searching for illegal modifications or targeting enhancements. They found nothing but standard issue equipment. "Meticulously maintained. Ammunition," Volkov demanded. Maria handed over her cartridge box. Standard military load. Not the custom hand-loaded rounds most competitors used. Scope standard issue Leupold Mark 5H-525. Not the multi-$1,000 optics favored by professional teams. As the inspection continued, Bradford observed silently from the corner. Outside, the next round of competitors fired, their shots echoing across the valley. "Your father," Bradford finally said when the inspectors finished and left empty minus-handed. What unit was he with? K. Maria's eyes flickered toward the colonel. 10th Mountain Division, sir. He died during a training accident at Fort Drum when I was 14. Bradford nodded slowly, something unit-unfightable passing behind his eyes. Carry on. Private, your next rotation is in 40 minutes. As he left the tent, Maria caught Thompson staring at her with newfound curiosity. The second round proved more challenging. Targets at 1,500 meters with full-value wind shifts changing direction every 30 seconds. Most competitors managed hit percentages in the 70 to 80% range. Exceptional shooters pushed into the 90s. Maria achieved 100% accuracy. "This is ridiculous," growled a German marksman after the results boasted. "Nobody shoots like that without specialized training." By the lunch break, Maria had become the competition's central mystery. Competitors who had initially dismissed her now studied her every move. Coaches huddled in small groups, discussing theories ranging from technological cheating to secret military programs. In the mess tent, Maria sat alone, methodically consuming her meal with the same precision she applied to shooting. A shadow fell across her table as a grizzled veteran with a pronounced limp settled across from her. After Gunnery Sergeant Thomas Walker, retired, he introduced himself with a friendly nod. "Marine Scout Sniper, 3 tours. Private First Class Maria Santos," she replied formally. "I know who you are, Private. Everyone knows who you are now." He smiled, lines crinkling around his eyes. "That was some mighty fine shooting this morning." "Thank you, sir." Walker leaned forward slightly. "Thing is, what you did out there, that wasn't just good shooting. That was something else entirely." Maria's expression remained neutral as she chewed her food. "You calculate windage in your head, don't you?" Walker pressed, "Not just standard adjustments, full mathematical models." Maria set down her fork. "Is there something I can help you with, Master Gunnery Sergeant?" Walker chuckled. "Just making conversation, Private, and maybe offering some advice." He glanced around before continuing in a lower voice. "You've got a target on your back now. Not just from competitors. You caught some serious attention today." Across the tent, Major Volkov sat with several other team leaders, his cold eyes fixed on Maria as he spoke in hushed tones. "If you need anything, you let me know," Walker said. Rising from the table, Marines and soldiers stick together when the wolves start circling. As the afternoon sessions began, Maria noticed more official observers on the range. Men and women unmarked tactical gear with communication devices, studying her through high-powered optics. The third round introduced long-range target discrimination with no shoot overlays at variable distances. Maria's performance remained exceptional but not perfect. She missed one shot when a sudden gust threw her trajectory off by centimeters. Finally, Volkov exclaimed loudly enough for nearby competitors to hear. The girl is human after all, but his satisfaction was short-lived. On her next rotation, Maria compensated with a series of rapid calculations that stunned the range officials. 3 targets, 3 different distances, 3 perfect hits in less than 6 seconds using trace to confirm wind calls, then snapping second-round corrections without a spotter. Classic U.S. schoolhouse habits. How is she doing this? Thompson whispered to no one in particular as he watched through binoculars. In the command center overlooking the range, Colonel Bradford took a secure call on his satellite phone. "Yes, sir." "Exactly as predicted," he murmured. "Absolutely extraordinary." "Yes, we're maintaining the cover story." "No, sir. Volkov suspects something but has no proof." "Understood. We'll proceed as planned." As day 1 of the competition concluded, Major Volkov intercepted Maria as she packed her gear. "Private Santos," she said, his imposing frame blocking her path. "I wish to personally inspect your service record. That would require proper authorization through my chain of command." "Major," Maria replied evenly. "Do not play games with me." Volkov growled, lowering his voice. "No private shoots like you shoot. I'll peel back whatever's covering you, Private. Count on it. Master Sergeant Thompson stepped between them. Is there a problem, Major? There will not be, Volkov replied with a thin smile. But I recommend you watch your substitute shooter carefully. Her performance raises questions. As the Major walked away, Thompson turned to Maria with a puzzled expression. He's right about one thing, Santos. Nobody shoots like that without specialized training. His eyes narrowed. What aren't you telling me about your background? Maria's face remained impassive. Permission to be dismissed, Sergeant? I need to prepare for tomorrow's qualifications. Thompson stared at her for a long moment before nodding. Dismissed. Later that night, in her Spartan quarters, Maria studied the next day's course of fire by the light of a small lamp. A soft knock had heard or interrupted her concentration. Package for you. Damn, said a young corporal, handing her a small envelope before quickly departing. Inside was a handwritten note. They're looking into your file. Stay focused. Remember your training. It was unsigned. Maria's hands trembled slightly as she burned the note over her trash can, watching the paper curl and blacken until nothing remained but ash. In his own quarters, Major Volkov sat at a secured laptop, methodically searching through U.S. Army personnel databases he shouldn't have had access to. His expression darkened as he discovered an anomaly in Maria Santos's service record. A 3-month gap labeled only as specialized training. That you, he whispered, a predatory smile spreading across his face. Dawn broke over the Rocky Mountains with military precision. Competitors emerged from their quarters into the biting cold, breath-forming clouds in the frigid air. Day 2 of the championship would separate the elite from the merely exceptional. Maria stood at the edge of the compound, performing a series of stretching exercises that resembled Taikai more than standard military PT. Her movements were fluid-controlled, almost hypnotic in their precision. Several competitors paused to watch, confusion evident on their faces. That's not Army training, muttered a Canadian Special Forces operator to his teammate. Looks more like the movement preparation routines from. He caught himself glancing around before lowering his voice further. The morning briefing crackled with tension. Major Volkov had filed an official protest regarding Maria's participation, citing irregularities in qualification standards and background verification. The committee has reviewed Major Volkov's concerns, announced the Chief Range Officer, a retired Navy SEIL. After thorough equipment inspection and review of provided documentation, Private First Class Santos remains qualified for today's competition stages. Volkov's face darkened dangerously. Colonel Bradford stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, expression neutral. Today's first evolution long-range target discrimination stage with no-shoot overlays, continued the range officer. Shooters will identify and neutralize 3 hostile targets while avoiding 2 non-combatant targets. Distance variable between 800 and 1100 meters. 3-minute time limit. As competitors dispersed to prepare, Maria found Master Gunnery Sergeant Walker waiting by her station. Heard about the protest, he said without preamble. Volkov's got friends in military intelligence. He's digging. Maria nodded almost imperceptibly as she began assembling her rifle. Thank you for the information. There's more. He accessed your service record last night through unofficial channels. Her hand stilled for just a fraction of a second, so brief most would have missed it, but Walker noticed. Whatever's in that record. He continued quietly. Whatever you're hiding, he found something. Maria resumed her preparation. I'm not hiding anything, Master Gunny. Walker's face cracked into a knowing smile. Sure you're not, kid. And I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. He leaned closer. Listen, I recognized those movement drills this morning. Only saw them once before. Kabul, 2014. Operator wouldn't tell me his unit designation, but I know who trains like that. Maria met his eyes for the first time. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't, Walker chuckled. Just like you don't know about calculating density altitude adjustments in your head or compensating for spin drift at extreme ranges. The PA system crackled. First shooter to the line. Stand by. Walker straightened. You need a friend out here, Private. Volkov's building a case against you and your own teamlet doesn't know what to make of you. He handed her a small card. My frequency. Secure channel. Use it if things go sideways. As the morning progressed, Maria's performance continued to defy explanation. In the target discrimination scenario, she placed all 3 shots within a half-inch grouping in the hostile targets while completely avoiding the non- combatants. Her time, 40-8 seconds, breaking the previous course record by over a minute. During lunch, Master Sergeant Thompson approached her table, hissing down a tablet. Care to explain this, Private? On screen was Maria's personnel file, specifically a 3-month period marked simply TDY specialized training with all other details redacted. That information is above your clearance level, Sergeant. Maria replied calmly. Thompson's eyes widened. Above my, he lowered his voice to a harsh whisper. I'm your damn team lead, Santos. Nothing about you should be above my clearance. I'm sorry, Sergeant. I can't discuss it. Can't or won't? Thompson hissed. Leaning forward. What are you, some kind of spook? CIA? CIA? Maria maintained a contact without answering. Fine, Thompson finally said, standing. But understand something. If whatever game you're playing compromises my team or this competition, I will personally end your military career. Are we clear? Crystal clear, Sergeant. The afternoon brought more complex shooting scenarios. Weather conditions deteriorated with snow flurries and gusting winds creating challenging visibility. Most competitors struggled, their scores dropping significantly from the previous day. Maria's performance remained exceptional, but not perfect. She missed 2 shots out of 20, both by mere centimeters. To the casual observer, it might have seemed like the conditions were finally affecting her. To the trained eye, something else was happening. She's sandbagging, Walker murmured to himself as he watched through binoculars. Smart girl. Major Volkov noticed too. During the final rotation, he positioned himself behind the American team's observation post, studying Maria through a spotting scope as she engaged targets. Your private has remarkable skills, he commented to Thompson, almost as if she received special training. Thompson said nothing, his own suspicions evident in his tight expression. Did you know, Volkov continued conversationally, that there is a highly classified American program called Sentinel? Very hush-hush. They take promising soldiers and turn them into something extraordinary. Thompson's head turned slightly. Never heard of it. Volkov smiled thinly. But I have friends who monitor such things. Very interesting program. They say these Sentinel operators can calculate ballistic solutions faster than computers, achieve accuracy under any conditions. Sounds like science fiction. Thompson replied, but his eyes drifted to Maria on the firing line. Has it? Volkov chuckled. Perhaps you should ask your Colonel Bradford about it. I believe he was involved in its early stages. As Volkov walked away, Thompson's radio crackled. Sergeant Thompson, report to the command center immediately. In the sterile confines of the competition command center, Thompson found Colonel Bradford waiting with 2 men in unmarked tactical gear. Master Sergeant Bradford nodded. These gentlemen are from duty oversight. They'd like to ask you about Private Santos. What about her, sir? Has she discussed her training background with you? Mentioned any special programs or facilities? Thompson hesitated. No, sir. But her file shows a 3-month gap labeled as specialized training. When I asked, she said it was above my clearance. The 2 men exchanged glances. Is there something I should know about my shooter? Colonel? Thompson pressed. Your shooter, Sergeant, Bradford emphasized, is a private first class with basic qualifications who is performing admirably under pressure. That's all you need to know. All due respect, sir, but she's breaking competition records out there, making shots that 20-year veteran snipers can't make. And now I've got the Russians suggesting she's part of some classified program called Sentinel. Bradford's expression hardened. Major Volkov should be more careful about spreading rumors. Private Santos is exactly what her file says she is, a soldier with good basic training and natural talent. So, you're saying there's no truth to what Volkov's suggesting? I'm saying you should focus on supporting your shooter and leave intelligence matters to those with the appropriate clearance, Bradford replied coldly. Dismissed. Sergeant. As day 2 of the competition concluded, Maria returned to her quarters only to find the door slightly ajar, and instinctively moving to a sidearm she wasn't carrying. She pushed the door open cautiously. Inside, everything appeared untouched, but hurt reigned. I detected subtle signs of intrusion. The corner of her mattress was misaligned by 2 millimeters. Her competition notebook lay at a slightly different angle than she'd left it. Quickly but methodically, she searched the room, locating a small listening device attached under her desk and a miniature camera hidden in the air vent. Without disabling either, she continued her evening routine as if nothing were amiss. Later, under the shower's running water to mask her voice, she spoke quietly into Walker's secure radio. Someone searched my quarters and planted surveillance. Russian team most likely. Walker's voice crackled back. What's your exposure risk? Minimal. Nothing compromising in the room. Good. Be advised, Volkov's been asking questions about a program called Sentinel. Naming anything to you? Maria's breath caught. Negative. Never heard of it. There was a pause before Walker responded. Copy that, Eagle. Stay frosty. Out. Maria froze at the call sign he'd used, one she'd never shared with anyone at the competition. Slowly, she turned off the water and dressed. Mind racing through contingency protocols. Outside her window, a rare auroral glow rippled over the Colorado sky, casting an ethereal green light over the competition compound. In a ghostly light, a figure stood watching her quarters from the shadows. Colonel Bradford, speaking quietly into a satellite phone. Yes, sir. Covers at risk. No. Sir. She's maintaining protocol. Understood. Tomorrow's scenarios will confirm capabilities. Yes, sir. Ghost protocols authorized if necessary. In the darkness of his own quarters, Major Volkov studied a grainy photograph showing a young Maria in what appeared to be specialized training gear, standing beside a man whose face was obscured by shadow. The patch on the man's shoulder was barely visible, an eagle clutching lightning bolts. The morning briefing room buzzed with tension. Overnight, an official complaint had been filed against the U.S. team, specifically targeting Maria's participation. Major Volkov stood at the center of the storm, flanked by team leaders from 4 other countries. His imposing frame seemed to fill the space as he addressed the competition officials, his Russian accent more pronounced under stress. This is not personal, Volkov announced to the assembled officials, his voice carrying through the room like artillery fire. This is about integrity of competition. Private Santos's documentation contains inconsistencies that warrant immediate investigation. The head judge, a retired Australian Special Forces commander named Collins, studied the paperwork before him. Deep lines creased his face as he flipped through the pages Volkov had provided. The silence in the room was oppressive as everyone waited for his assessment. These allegations are serious, Major, Collins finally said, looking up with steel-minus blue eyes. You're claiming Private Santos falsified her military qualifications. Not falsified, Volkov corrected with a predatory smile that never reached his cold eyes, concealed. We believe Private Santos is not what she appears to be. All eyes turned to Maria, who stood at parade rest beside Master Sergeant Thompson, her expression impassive. Despite being the center of attention, she maintained perfect military bearing. Back straight, shoulders square, eyes forward. Not a flicker of emotion crossed her face as 20 of the world's deadliest shooters scrutinized her every micro-minus expression. Private, Collins addressed her directly, his tone neutral but authoritative. Do you have anything to say regarding these allegations? No, sir, Maria replied evenly. My service record speaks for itself. That's precisely the problem, Volkov interjected, stepping forward with the confidence of an apex predator. Her record speaks volumes through what it does not say. He produced several documents with official military letterhead, passing them to Collins. 3 months of specialized training with no location, no instructors, no qualification metrics. This violates competition transparency requirements. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees as other team leaders leaned forward, suddenly more interested. A British SAS commander exchanged glances with his German counterpart. Colonel Bradford stepped forward, his face revealing nothing of his thoughts. His voice, however, carried the unmistakable authority of decades in command positions. Major Volkov seems unusually interested in U.S. Army training protocols, Bradford observed dryly. Perhaps he should focus on his own team's preparation instead of launching baseless accusations. Not baseless, Volkov countered, producing more papers with the flourish of a prosecutor delivering damning evidence. Private Santos's enlistment shows standard marksman qualification, yet yesterday she outshot operators with decades of experience. This is not possible without advanced training. Training not disclosed to competition committee. The room erupted in heated discussion. European team leaders conferred in hushed tones. The Israeli contingent studied Maria with newfound interest. Throughout the commotion, Maria remained motionless, her eyes fixed on the middle distance, revealing nothing. Finally, Collins raised his hand for silence. The room quieted immediately, respect for the veteran commander evident. We will allow Private Santos to continue competing while the committee reviews these concerns, Collins announced, his decision clearly disappointing Volkov, whose jaw tightened visibly. However, he fixed Maria with a stern look. Any evidence of deliberate misrepresentation will result in immediate disqualification and possible sanctions against the U.S. team. The tension broke as competitors and officials filed out. Breaking into small clusters of intense conversation, Maria caught fragments as she passed. Never seen shooting like that from a private. Something's not right about her. Americans hiding something. Outside the briefing room, Thompson grabbed Maria's arm and steered her to a quiet corner of the corridor. His face was a thundercloud of barely contained fury. "What the hell is going on, Santos?" he demanded, keeping his voice low but intense. "First you're just support. Now you're setting competition records. And the Russians think you're some kind of secret weapon. Level with me. Now." Maria met his gaze steadily. "Sergeant, I'm just a soldier following orders. My job is to compete to the best of my ability." "Bullshit," Thompson hissed. "I've been training marksmen for 15 years. Nobody goes from basic qualification to competition level overnight. Nobody." Before Maria could respond, Colonel Bradford approached with measured steps. His face was calm, but his eyes communicated urgency. "Sergeant Thompson, a word." He led Thompson several paces away, speaking in low, intense tones that Maria couldn't hear. Thompson's expression cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally reluctant acceptance as Bradford continued whatever explanation he was offering. Master Gunnery Sergeant Walker appeared beside Maria, seemingly materializing from nowhere. Despite his retirement, the former Marine Scout sniper moved with the silent efficiency of a lifetime operator. "That went about as well as expected," Walker muttered. "The old card's playing hardball." "He doesn't have anything concrete," Maria replied quietly, her eyes never leaving Bradford and Thompson. "Just suspicions and circumstantial evidence." "Doesn't need it," Walker countered, scanning the room with the practiced eye of a combat veteran. "Just needs to get in your head. Throw off your game. Create enough doubt that you second-minus guess yourself on the firing line." He studied her with penetrating intensity. "Is it working?" Maria's eyes tracked to where Bradford and Thompson were still engaged in intense conversation. Thompson's body language had shifted from confrontational to something more complex, confusion mixed with reluctant acceptance. "No," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "But things are getting complicated." "Complicated is what happens when you send a ghost to a public competition," Walker muttered, using terminology that would mean nothing to casual listeners but carried significant weight between them. "Heads up, you've got more problems coming." A woman in civilian clothes approached purposefully, press credentials hanging around her neck. She was in her mid-30s with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a confident stride that suggested military background, despite her civilian attire. Private Santos, she called, her voice professionally pleasant but insistent. Sarah Mitchell, military correspondent for Defense Weekly. I'd like to ask you about your unprecedented performance yesterday. Maria tensed almost imperceptibly, a reaction invisible to normal observation but clear to Walker, who shifted slightly to provide better protective positioning. No comment, ma'am, Maria responded with textbook military courtesy. All press inquiries should go through the Competition Public Affairs Office. Mitchell smiled, undeterred. The smile didn't reach her eyes, which remained calculating and focused. I'm particularly interested in your background. Your service record shows you enlisted 18 months ago, but there's something curious about your file. As I said, no comment. Maria moved to step past the reporter. I have a photo I'd like you to look at. Mitchell produced a tablet displaying an image of military personnel in what appeared to be a graduation ceremony. The lighting was poor and the angle unfavorable, but the location was unmistakable to those who knew it. This was taken 3 years ago at Fort Liberty Special Operations Qualification Course. Maria didn't look at the tablet. I need to prepare for today's events. Excuse me. The thing is, Mitchell continued, stepping to block Maria's path with a smoothness that suggested tactical training. One of these graduates bears a remarkable resemblance to you, but that would be impossible since you were in the military 3 years ago. Were you private? Walker intervened with the smooth efficiency of decades in special operations, positioning himself between Maria and Mitchell. Ma'am, competitors have a strict preparation schedule. I'm going to have to ask you to take your questions to the PAO. Mitchell's eyes narrowed slightly as she reassessed Walker. Of course, Master Gunnery Sergeant Walker. By the way, how's retirement treating you? Still consulting for that private military contractor in Virginia? The one with all the interesting government contracts? Walker's friendly demeanor cooled several degrees. Move along. Miss Shaw. The reporter held his gaze for a beat longer than comfortable, then nodded slightly. We'll continue this conversation later. Private Santos. She walked away with unhurried confidence. As she disappeared around a corner, Maria released a breath. She hadn't realized she was holding. She knows something, Walker muttered, scanning for any other potential threats. She's fishing, Maria replied, her mind already calculating probabilities in containment scenarios. Either way, it's a problem. A bigger one than you might think, Walker responded, guiding Maria toward the equipment preparation area. Mitchell isn't just any reporter. She's got connections in intelligence communities, deep ones. The day's first event was announced over the compound's PA system. Extreme angle shooting from a helicopter platform. Targets positioned on mountain faces at distances from 600 to 1200 meters. Competitors would be assessed on accuracy, speed, and adaptability to rapidly changing conditions. As competitors prepared their equipment, Maria found herself isolated in a way that hadn't been evident the previous day. Other shooters gave her a wide berth, eyeing her with a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. Team coaches who had been friendly now avoided eye contact. Thompson was nowhere to be seen. Only Walker remained nearby, providing quiet advice as she checked her equipment. They're trying to rattle you, he said as he helped her calibrate her scope, his hands moving with the precise efficiency of someone who had performed these actions thousands of times. Standard psychological warfare. Focus on your fundamentals. Maria nodded, her face betraying nothing. But inside, memories surfaced and widened. Younger Maria struggling through a brutal training regimen, like anything experienced by conventional military personnel. Falling repeatedly into muddy water as instructors shouted relentlessly. Again, Santos, you think the enemy takes breaks? You think physics gives a damn about your feelings? Calculate, adjust, execute. The punishing rain that had continued for days without cessation. The sleep deprivation that blurred reality's edges. The endless calculations performed under extreme stress until mathematical formulas for ballistic trajectories became as instinctive as breathing. Training on degraded optics until she could compensate for any equipment limitation. The man with silver eagles on his collar observing silently from beneath a poncho. His blue eyes so similar to her own, revealing nothing of his thoughts as she pushed through the most demanding training program in military history. Santos, you're up. The range officer's voice snapped her back to the present with the efficiency of a cold water immersion. The helicopter platform swayed slightly in the wind as Maria positioned herself. Through her scope, the target seemed impossibly small against the vast mountain backdrop. Pinpricks of color against gray rock and white snow. Wind swirled unpredictably through the valleys, creating micro-minus currents that would throw off conventional calculations. Shoot already, called the range officer, his voice nearly lost in the helicopter's engine noise. Ready, Maria confirmed, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Inside her mind, a calm space had formed the eye of a hurricane where complex calculations flowed with mathematical precision. Oh, she'd memorized ballistic dope for every possible scenario during those endless training nights. Engage targets. Maria's world narrowed to her breathing, her trigger finger, and the complex mathematical equations flowing through her mind. The first shot rang out, echoing off the mountains. Hit. Center mass. Second target. Adjustment for increased elevation in crosswind 0. Hate no hold. Hit. Third target. Obscured partially by morning mist. Reading wind via thermal shimmer. Hit. Fourth target. A violent gust rocked the platform at the precise moment Maria squeezed the trigger. The bullet missed by millimeters, striking the rock face beside the target. Miss, called the spotter. Target for is a miss. Maria recalculated, compensating for the new wind pattern. Her second shot struck true. When she completed the course, her score was excellent but not perfect. 9 hits from 10 shots, placing her third among competitors who had already fired. Major Volkov, who had shot a perfect 10, smiled triumphantly as she descended from the platform. His massive frame blocked the sunlight momentarily as he deliberately stepped into her path. Pressure getting to you, Private? He asked, his voice a rumbling baritone laced with mock concern. Perhaps this level of competition is too much for someone of your limited experience. Maria said nothing as she moved to the equipment area. Several other competitors watched the interaction with poorly concealed interest. Your performance is slipping, Walker noted quietly as he helped her clean her rifle, his hands moving with practiced efficiency over the weapon. That last miss wasn't a miss, Maria interrupted, her voice barely audible as she leaned closer under the pretense of examining the bolt assembly. It exactly where I intended. Walker's eyes widened slightly, understanding dawning immediately. You deliberately missed. Why? Maria's hands continued working on the rifle, her movements precise and methodical. Too many eyes watching, too many questions already. Understanding dawned on Walker's face. You're playing a dangerous game. Cheered. Not a game, Maria corrected. Her voice so low Walker had to strain to hear it. Orders are orders. Walker nodded almost imperceptibly. Roger that. But watch your 6. Volkov's got more plan than just filing complaints. The midday break brought no respite from the growing tension. Maria sat alone in the mess tent, methodically consuming her meal with military efficiency. Fuel for the body, nothing more. Around her, conversations hushed momentarily when competitors noticed her, then resumed with furtive glances in her direction. Sarah Mitchell approached with the confident stride of someone accustomed to moving in dangerous environments. May I? The reporter asked, indicating the empty seat, across from Maria. Before Maria could refuse, Mitchell placed a folder on the table and opened it. Inside was a photograph that made Maria's blood run cold. A younger version of herself in specialized tactical gear, standing next to a tall man whose face was shadowed by a bony hat. Both wore patches depicting an eagle with lightning bolts. Ghost Battalion, Mitchell said quietly, her voice pitched to carry no further than Maria's ears. the Army's most secretive special operations unit. So classified, most military personnel don't know it exists. Her eyes locked with Maria's. Why is a ghost operator competing as a private first class in an international shooting competition? Operative Santos. Or should I call you by your call sign? Maria's expression revealed nothing, but her mind raced through containment protocols. Assessment. Critical security breach. Required action denied. Deflect. Contain. Before she could respond, Colonel Bradford appeared beside the table, moving with the silent efficiency that betrayed his own special operations background. "Ms. Mitchell," he said pleasantly, though his eyes were cold as Arctic ice. "I believe we had an agreement about approaching competitors without authorization." Colonel Bradford Mitchell smiled thinly. "I was just having lunch with Private Santos. Public space, casual conversation." Bradford's smile never reached his eyes. "I need those photos and any related materials you may have." National security matter. Mitchell closed the folder with deliberate slowness. "Freedom of the press, Colonel. I don't take orders from the military." "Then perhaps you'd prefer to discuss it with these gentlemen." Bradford nodded toward two men in dark suits who had positioned themselves near the tent entrance. Their posture and watchful eyes marked them clearly as security personnel despite their civilian attire. Mitchell's expression hardened. "This isn't over," she said, rising from the table. As she walked away, she leaned close to Maria. "Eagle, that's your call sign, isn't it?" Maria remained seated, her posture unchanged, but her pulse had accelerated minutely. A physiological response that would be undetectable to normal observation. Bradford watched Mitchell's departure before turning to Maria. "Containment in progress," he said quietly. "Continue mission parameters. Maintain operational security." "Yes, sir," Maria responded, the brief acknowledgement conveying complete understanding of the complex tactical situation unfolding around them. The afternoon brought Maria's most challenging event, yet a night-fire exercise with thermal optics. As darkness fell over the Rocky Mountains, competitors prepared specialized equipment designed for low-light conditions, cutting-edge thermal imaging scopes, advanced night vision systems, and custom modifications that represented the pinnacle of military technology. Maria's standard-issue gear stood in stark contrast to the cutting-edge technology around her. Her basic PVS-14 night vision monocular mounted as a clip- onto her Leupold Mark V HD looked almost primitive compared to the sophisticated dedicated thermal systems other competitors were mounting. "This is embarrassing," a German shooter commented loud enough for everyone to hear as he adjusted his $15,000 thermal optic, like bringing a musket to a machine gun fight. Several competitors laughed. A British sniper shook his head in mock sympathy. "American budget cuts must be worse than we thought, eh?" Major Volkov made no attempt to hide his disdain as he passed Maria's position. "Perhaps we should handicap scores for equipment disadvantage," he suggested to a competition official with exaggerated concern. "It seems unfair to expect such basic tools to compete with modern technology." Maria continued her preparations without acknowledgement, methodically checking her equipment with practiced efficiency. To casual observers, she appeared focused but calm, perhaps even resigned to poor performance given her equipment disadvantage. The night-fire course was diabolically difficult. The moving targets at variable ranges in near-total darkness, with sudden flares creating momentary blindness and thermal distortion. Weather conditions had deteriorated, adding freezing rain and gusting winds to the already challenging environment. One by one, elite shooters struggled through the course, their scores reflecting the extreme difficulty. Even Volkov, with his state minus of minus the minus art equipment and decades of experience, managed to hit only 60% of the targets. When Maria's turn came, she moved to the firing position with the same methodical precision she'd shown throughout the competition. But those with trained eyes noticed something different, a subtle shift in posture, a different quality to her movements. Her breathing pattern changed almost imperceptibly. Look at her stance, Walker murmured to no one in particular as he watched through binoculars from the observation area. That's not basic training. That's Ghost protocol. Through her basic thermal optic, Maria tracked targets that more advanced equipment struggled to acquire. Years of training on degraded equipment had taught her to read thermal signatures through interference. Her firing cadence was precise, methodical, almost mechanical in its perfection. When sudden flares erupted, temporarily blinding other competitors, she continued firing without hesitation, using memorized ballistic data to engage targets she could no longer see. Target after target registered hits. Not just hits, but perfect center mass strikes despite the extreme conditions. Maria moved through the course with a fluid efficiency that seemed almost supernatural to the observers. By the time she finished the course, a stunned silence had fallen over the observation area. A course minus record score, not a single miss. Only 2 competitors had ever achieved perfect scores on the night, minus fire course in the championship's history. As Maria secured her weapon and moved toward the equipment area, the silence was broken by slow, deliberate applause from Colonel Bradford. Other observers joined hesitantly, the sound building into reluctant recognition of what they just witnessed. Major Volkov stood rigid with barely contained fury. "This is outrageous," he hissed to his assistant, who flinched at the intensity of his commander's anger. "She's using technology we cannot detect. There is no other explanation." Master Sergeant Thompson met Maria at the equipment table, his expression a complex mixture of awe and suspicion. The confrontational attitude from earlier had been replaced by something more complex, professional respect mingled with deep uncertainty. "That was impossible, Santos," he said quietly as she began breaking down her weapon for cleaning. "Nobody shoots like that with basic equipment. Nobody." Maria began breaking down her rifle. Her movements precise and economical. Each component was checked, cleaned, and secured with textbook precision. "Just applied the fundamentals, Sergeant," she replied, her voice neutral as she inspected the bolt assembly. "What they teach in basic." "Bullshit," Thompson whispered harshly, leaning closer to ensure their conversation remained private. "I've been shooting since you were in diapers. What I just saw out there defies physics. I want the truth, now." Maria paused, looking up at him with eyes that suddenly seemed much older than her 20-2 years. Eyes that had seen things no young private should have seen. "Truth is rarely what we want it to be, Sergeant." Before Thompson could respond, competition officials approached to escort Maria to yet another equipment inspection. This one would be comprehensive. Full tech sweep, rifle, optics, comms, boots, and uniform seams would be examined for hidden technology or aids that might explain her inexplicable performance. Hours later, exhausted but vindicated, Maria finally returned to her quarters. The inspection had found nothing. No hidden technology, no unauthorized modifications. Nothing to explain her extraordinary performance beyond human skill. The room was small but functional, standard military accommodation with a bed, desk, and private bathroom. Maria performed a quick but thorough security sweep, checking for surveillance devices or signs of intrusion. Finding nothing obvious, she began her evening routine with military precision. As she prepared for bed, a soft knock sounded at her door. 3 quick taps followed by 2 slower ones, a recognition pattern taught in specialized training programs. Cautiously, she opened it to find Walker standing outside, his expression grave. "Walk with me," he said quietly. "Surveillance in your room is active again. Professionally installed within the last hour." They moved silently through the darkened compound, breath fogging in the frigid Colorado night. Few competitors were out at this hour. Most were either sleeping or reviewing their performances from the day's events. The sky was sharp with cold stars, casting silver light across the snow-covered landscape. "They're closing in," Walker said when they reached a secluded observation point overlooking the valley. His voice low, barely audible even in the quiet night. "Mitchell has more than photos. She has documentation, training records, deployment histories. things that shouldn't exist outside secure networks. How? Maria asked, her voice barely audible, eyes continuously scanning their surroundings for potential observers. Someone's feeding her information. Someone with high-level access. Walker looked at her directly, his face grave in the starlight. Your cover's blown. Kid, it's only a matter of time. Maria stared out across the moonlit valley, her mind calculating options and probabilities with enhanced efficiency. The wind carried ice crystals that sparkled in the strange light, creating an almost magical atmosphere that contrasted sharply with the deadly serious conversation. What would you suggest, Master Gunny? Ghost Protocol, Walker replied without hesitation. Disappear tonight. Competition staff will find an empty room tomorrow. And Private First Class Maria Santos becomes another military mystery. We have extraction assets in place that can have you halfway to Denver before anyone realizes you're gone. She shook her head slowly. Not an option. Because of the mission? Walker asked, studying her with the assessment skills honed through decades in special operations. Maria's head turned sharply, eyes narrowing slightly, the first genuine reaction she'd shown since their conversation began. Walker smiled thinly, the expression more predatory than humorous. I may be retired, but I'm not blind. This isn't about a shooting competition. You're here for something else. Or someone else. He gestured toward the competition compound below them. This whole setup, Bradford's involvement, your cover identity, it's an operation, not a competition entry. For long moment, Maria said nothing, weighing operational security against the tactical reality of their situation. Finally, she spoke in a voice so quiet Walker had to lean closer to hear. What do you know about Project Overlord? Walker's expression hardened instantly, the name clearly triggering recognition. Enough to know it should have been shut down years ago. Deep Black Program, initially designed for technology transfer between allied special operations units, went off the reservation around 2018 when certain elements began privatizing classified military technologies. It wasn't shut down. Maria replied, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. It just went deeper underground. Continued operations through cutout companies and third-party intermediaries. Started selling American military technology to the highest bidder. Understanding dawned on Walker's face. Volkov, he whispered. The pieces falling into place. He's not just a competition shooter. He's Overlord personnel. Maria neither confirmed nor denied. But her silence was answer enough. Jesus Christ, Walker breathed, running a hand through his silver-shot hair. This isn't a competition. It's an intelligence operation. Tomorrow's the final day, Maria said, changing the subject with practiced efficiency. Long-range precision event followed by the champion ceremony. Maria, Walker gripped her arm, his voice urgent. If Volkov is what I think he is, he won't let you complete the mission. He'll eliminate you first. Let him try. Maria replied with chilling confidence that seemed at odds with her youthful appearance. As they walked back toward the quarters, moving along carefully selected routes to minimize surveillance exposure, a shadow detached itself from a nearby building. Sarah Mitchell, watching their interaction with intense interest. The reporter remained perfectly still, utilizing techniques that suggested specialized training far beyond normal journalism requirements. In her hand was a satellite phone, and the call she just completed had gone to a number few people in the world had access to. Sir, she had reported moments earlier, her voice professional and precise. Ghost operative confirmed. Sentinel Program activation verified. Walker is providing operational support. The voice that responded was clipped, authoritative. Maintain surveillance. Do not interfere. Confirmation code Eagle Strike. Understood, Mitchell had replied without hesitation. Eagle Strike confirmed. As Maria entered her quarters, aware of the surveillance but past caring, she removed the silver medallion from around her neck. To casual observation, it appeared to be a simple memento, perhaps a good luck charm or sentimental keepsake. In reality, It was a sophisticated piece of technology disguised as ordinary jewelry. Pressing a hidden catch revealed a compartment containing a microchip smaller than her fingernail. On that chip, 3 years of intelligence gathering on Project Overlord. Names, dates, financial transactions, evidence of technology transfers to hostile foreign entities, proof of treason at the highest levels of military command. 3 years of deep cover work, countless lives at risk. All coming down to tomorrow's final act. She replaced the medallion and prepared for bed with military efficiency. Sleep would come quickly, another skill taught in a program that officially didn't exist. In his own quarters, Major Volkov made preparations of a different sort, cleaning a specialized weapon designed to leave no trace of its use. The competition would end tomorrow, one way or another. Colonel Bradford, watching satellite imagery of the compound on a secure tablet, spoke quietly into his communications device. All pieces in position. Operation Ghost Eagle proceeds at 800 hours. Sunrise painted the Rocky Mountains blood red. The mood in the compound was electric as competitors prepared for the most intense day of the championship. Maria moved through her morning routine with machine-like precision. Those with trained eyes noticed the slight adjustment in her stance that optimized movement efficiency and her systematic visual scanning that missed nothing. Sarah Mitchell approached as Maria finished her pre-minus competition meal. "I need to speak with you," the reporter said without preamble. "I have nothing to say," Maria replied, rising to leave. Mitchell caught her arm. "Eagle Strike." Maria froze. The code phrase activated protocols drilled into her through thousands of hours of specialized training. "Walk with me," Mitchell said. "We have 3 minutes before they notice." They moved toward the equipment preparation area, maintaining the appearance of a routine interview. "You're not a reporter," Maria stated flatly when they were momentarily isolated. "No more than you're a private first class," Mitchell replied. "IA liaison for oversight. We've been monitoring Sentinel operations for 18 months. Monitoring? Or interfering? We know about Volkov." Mitchell continued. "Former Spetsnaz commander recruited by Project Overlord in 2019. He's been stealing American military technology and selling it to third-party actors. But that's not why you're here, is it?" Mitchell handed her a small data drive. "You'll want this before you proceed. Volkov isn't working alone." As Mitchell walked away, Master Sergeant Thompson approached. "Making friends with the press now, Santos?" "Just answering some questions, Sergeant." Thompson's expression hardened. "I had some questions too. So I made some calls last night. Turns out nobody at Fort Carson remembers a private first-class Maria Santos completing basic training there." The competition announcement system crackled to life, interrupting their confrontation. "All competitors report to the main range for the final event briefing." The final event was the championship's most challenging test, extreme long-range precision fire under combat conditions. Targets would be placed at distances ranging from 500 to 20-500 meters with environmental challenges including smoke obscuration and extreme weather conditions. 8 shooters had advanced to this stage. Maria drew position 7 next to last. Volkov would shoot immediately before her. Walker intercepted Maria at the equipment table. Mitchell made contact, he said, helping her assemble her rifle. Maria nodded almost imperceptibly. "Then we're blown. CIA wouldn't risk direct contact otherwise." Walker finished mounting Maria's scope. "What's your play?" "Complete the mission." The competition began. The highest score after 6 competitors was 3 hits out of 5 targets. Then came Major Volkov's turn. His first shot struck dead center. So did his second, and his third. The crowd watched in amazed silence as he completed the course with a perfect 5 for 5 feet, deemed nearly impossible under the conditions. As Volkov rose from his position, he cast a triumphant glance at Maria. "Try to match that, Private." Maria moved to the firing position with calm precision. She set up her standard issue rifle methodically. making minute adjustments that only the most experienced observers would recognize as far beyond basic military training. She took a deep breath, exhaled halfway, and held. Her mind processed variables with computer minus like efficiency, distance, windage, temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, Coriolis, spindrift, ammunition characteristics all flowing through memorized ballistic tables. The rifle cracked. 1.5 seconds later, the first target registered a perfect hit. She adjusted minutely for each subsequent target mill holds calculated instantly from years of memorized data. The fourth required tracking a moving target at variable speed. Her fifth shot was at 20-500 meters in deteriorating weather with gusting winds creating chaotic patterns across the valley. Maria closed her eyes briefly. When she reopened them, something had changed. Her entire demeanor shifted subtly, a transformation visible only to those who knew what to look for. She's gone full Ghost protocol, Walker recognized immediately. Maria's breathing slowed to an impossible for breaths per minute technique, trained through years of biofeedback conditioning. Time seemed to stretch as her enhanced perception processed environmental data at speeds approaching the limits of human capability. The rifle cracked one final time. For an eternal 3.4 seconds, nothing happened. Then, the final target registered a perfect center mass hit at 20-500 meters. A shot that defied conventional ballistics. Perfect score. 5 for 5. As Maria rose and secured her weapon, the crowd erupted in thunderous applause. She had matched Volkov's perfect score, forcing a shoot minus off for the championship. Major Volkov's face had transformed from triumphant to murderous. As Maria walked past him, he spoke in a voice only she could hear. I know what you are, Ghost. Your presence here is no coincidence. Nor is yours, Major, Maria replied without breaking stride. In the equipment tent, competition officials informed the two finalists of the shoot minus off rules. A single target at 3,000 meters, beyond the effective range of standard military sniper systems. One shot each. Sarah Mitchell reappeared with her press credentials clearly displayed. One last question, she said to Volkov. Would you care to comment on your connection to Project Overlord and the theft of classified Sentinel Program technologies? Hey, Volkov's head snapped up, eyes narrowing dangerously. What did you say? Mitchell held up her press badge, which now displayed different credentials altogether. Central Intelligence Agency Special Activities Center. Sarah Mitchell. IA Liaison. Major Dmitry Volkov, you're under investigation for espionage and technology theft. The tent erupted into chaos. Security personnel converged from all directions. Walker's voice cut in, calm and hard, as Volkov lunged toward Mitchell. Hands where I can see them. It's a setup, Volkov shouted as competition security restrained him. The American sent her in. She's Ghost Battalion. Colonel Bradford entered the tent flanked by military police. This competition is compromised. Volkov continued to shout as they lead him away. Ask her. Ask Santos what she really is. All eyes turned to Maria, who stood at parade rest, face impassive. Private Santos, the head judge addressed her directly. Are you prepared to continue with the final shoot minus off? Yes, sir, she replied evenly. And we will proceed as scheduled. As competitors and officials filed out, Walker leaned close to Maria. Mission accomplished. Not yet, she murmured. Mitchell jumped the gun. Volkov was supposed to lead us to his contact. You think he'll talk? Maria's eyes tracked to where Bradford was conferring with security personnel. No, but his gear might. Understanding dawned on Walker's face. The rifle. Maria nodded almost imperceptibly. Custom minus built in a lab that doesn't exist using technology stolen from Sentinel. The real mission was never about Volkov. It was about recovering the prototype. The shoot minus off proceeded with Maria as the only competitor. The target ate 12-inch circle at 3,000 meters. A shot considered nearly impossible with standard military equipment. Maria settled into position, her movements fluid and precise. Through her scope, target was barely visible, a tiny disk in a sea of variables that would defeat even the most advanced ballistic computers. She took a deep breath and released it slowly. The world around her faded away as she entered a state few humans could achieve. Perfect harmony between mind, body, and environment. Years of biofeedback training, memorized ballistic data, and enhanced perception capabilities all converged into this single moment. The rifle cracked. 3 eternal seconds passed as the bullet traveled across 3 kilometers of space, dancing with wind, currents, and gravity. The impact indicator flashed bright red. Perfect center hit at 3,000 meters. The crowd erupted in stunned disbelief. Colonel Bradford approached with the championship trophy, a rare smile creasing his face. Congratulations, Private Santos. That was the finest display of shooting I've ever witnessed. Bradford leaned closer as he presented the trophy. Medallion secure? Yes, sir. Package intact. Extraction team standing by. 30 minutes. Maria nodded almost imperceptibly as she accepted the trophy. For this moment, she was Private First Class Maria Santos, unlikely shooting champion. In 30 minutes, she would vanish, and Maria Santos would cease to exist.